This is review number 2 for chapter 3 test. Number 1, what is the constant rate of change between x and y in the table below? Well, constant rate of change, they want us to look for the slope. All I need to do is find the change in y over the change in x. Well, let's see, what does y do? It looks like I go down by 7. So the numerator is a -7. And my denominator is my change in x. From -2 to 3, you can look at your number line. I'm going up by 5. So that is your slope. Number 2, what is the slope of the line that passes through the points A, -3, -6, and D, 3, 1? Again, we're looking for slope, which is the change in y over the change in x, and we have a formula that allows us to do this from 2 points. That would be y2 minus y1, the change in y, over x2 minus x1, the change in x. Label your points. Every ordered pair has to have an x and a y. The first one I labeled with 1s, the second one I labeled with 2s. All right, and then I just plug it in. y2 minus y1, which is a -6. x2 minus x1, which is a -3. When I have minus a negative, that's the same as plus a positive. Add the opposite. So 1 plus 6 over 3 plus 3. You can also do that on your calculator. Is 7 over 6. What are 3 numbers that have a sum of 52, and if the greatest number is 8 more than the least number? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first add up all the numbers in A, B, C, and D and figure out if they have a sum of 52. So on my calculator for A, I see 10 plus 17 plus 18. That gives me 45, which is not 52. So already we know that's not an answer. B, again, I'm just adding these numbers up. 13 plus 18 plus 21 gives me 52. That's looking good so far. Now let's check. Is the greatest number 8 more than the least number? So we take the greatest number, which is 21, and we subtract the least number. And 21 minus 13 looks like it is 8. So this is going to be our answer. And you can always double check by looking at the other ones. You should always double check. Okay, I'm going to add up the numbers in C. 14 plus 15 plus 22 equals a 51, so we already know that doesn't work. And D, I can tell just by looking at it, 2 plus 9 plus 10 is nowhere near 52. This is a 21. Okay, so you know the answer is B. All right, this is the one where we have to compare. The calories of chips from brand A are shown in the graph. So I'm going to go ahead and label this A. The graph is brand A. The calories Y for X chips from brand B is represented by the equation Y equals 20X. So I'm going to write down here, B, we have Y equals 20X. Which of the following statements are true? Apparently it's missing those words. F, the calories from brand A are more. G, the calories from brand A are 30 each. H, the calories from brand B are 25 each. Or I, the calories from brand B are more. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and figure out how many calories are there in each chip. Okay, calories per chip. Hopefully you know that means to look for the slope. We're looking for the slope. Okay, let's find the slope of the graph. You can use ordered pairs if you want, or you can count on the graph. I'm going to go ahead and count on the graph. If I start here at 0 and I go up, I'm going up 10 each box I go. So 10, 20, this is 30. I went up 30. My rise is 30. And my run over, looks like I go over 1 each time. 1, 2. So this is 2 and this is 30 this way. And when I divide that, I get 15. So my slope of graph A is 15. Graph B, or not graph B, but we have brand B. Hopefully you guys know the slope is the number that comes before the x. So here the m is 20. So we're comparing those two slopes. We have m equals 15 and m equals 20. Obviously one is bigger than the other, so it's not going to be G and H.
Mr. David, please start attention to.
Since we know one is bigger than the other, we have to know it's either F or I. So which one is more? B is bigger. So that would be answer I. The calories from brand B are more. Number 5, what are the slope and y-intercept of the graph y minus 2x equals negative 5? Is this in slope-intercept form? Remember slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. This is not in slope-intercept form. Y is not by itself. So I need to take this equation, y minus 2x equals negative 5, and turn it into slope-intercept form before I read the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, I need to move the negative 2x, so I'm going to add 2x to both sides. By the way, these are not like terms here, right? This here we have a constant, and this is a variable. We cannot combine those. So while these cancel out over here and we're left with y equals, we're just going to write down both terms. I'm going to start with the x term, 2x, and then put the negative 5 there. Now it's in slope-intercept form, and we can read the slope and the y-intercept. Slope is the 2, and the y-intercept is the negative 5, which is answer B. Be very careful because all these answers look similar, especially on the test, so double check your work first. Which is the equation in slope-intercept form for the graph of the line shown? Okay, for slope-intercept form, let's write it down again. Y equals mx plus b. You need to find the m and the b. So let's do that from the graph. Let's start with m. Okay, you can take any 2 points on this graph. I'm going to go ahead and use this one and this one. It looks like this graph is going by ones, right? Each way it goes up by 1, it goes over by 1, so I can just count by ones as I go. Use a different color here. If I start at this dot, I'm going up 1, 2, so my numerator is 2, and I run over 1, and I can just write that as a 2. I would not mark it wrong if we wrote 2 over 1. So we have y equals mx, and now let's find the b. The b is where it hits.
Mr. David, please start.
Sorry. It's where it hits the y-axis, so where this line comes across this y-axis. I see people still struggling with that concept. So where do those two things meet? That's right here at 1. So our answer goes on this line, y equals 2x plus 1. Number 7, Darian is having his birthday party at a water park. The park charges $90 plus $50 per guest. Which is kind of weird because we don't usually do that when you go to a water park. You usually pay just a 1 fee per person, but this park is apparently different. So pretend it's like you have to pay for a group rate. You pay $90 up front, and then you pay $15 per every person that's coming. Okay, that's what that That's what that $90 means. The total cost of the party Y can be represented by the equation Y equals 15x plus 90. We want to know, what does the slope represent? The slope is this guy here. So what does the 15 represent? Does it represent the number of guests? Well, no, this part is the number of guests. The 15 itself is the slope. So it's not the number of guests, it's the cost per guest. The cost to rent the water park would have been the 90, and we don't know Darian's age. Which equation in point-slope form passes through 3, -1 and has a slope of 2? Okay, remember this is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And this is our x1 and y1, and this is m. All you're doing is plugging in. So we start with y minus, find your y1, which is a -1. I'm going to simplify that in a minute. The slope is 2, and you have x minus x1, which is 3. To simplify this, minus a negative becomes plus a positive. And which one looks like that? Y plus 1 equals 2 times x minus 3. That looks like f to me. Be careful, they look very similar. Okay, we want plus here and we want minus there. What are the x and y intercepts for 4x minus 3y equals 24? Remember the x and y intercepts. Well, let's talk about the x-intercept first. The x-intercept is when y equals 0. So if we rewrite this right here, but when I come to y, I put in 0 instead, I get 4x minus 3 times 0, 3 times y, 3 times 0, equals 24. Okay, that means you'll have 4x minus 0 is 24. You don't have to write every step, as long as you know that 4x will equal 24, and we have to divide by 4 to get x by itself. All right, and we're going to write that as an ordered pair. So that's going to be the x is 6 and the y is 0, because that's what we plugged in. Okay, so 6, 0. Let's do the y-intercept. This is when x is 0. So we're going to go ahead and say 4 times x, which would be 4 times 0, since x is 0, minus 3y equals 24. Again, that just comes from this equation. Okay, 4 times 0 is 0, minus 3y equals 24. That means that a negative 3y will equal 24, and we need to divide by negative 3 to get y by itself. And this will be a negative 8, and that is the ordered pair. X comes first, so x was 0, y is a negative 8. I'm going to go ahead and put those on my line for my two answers, 6, 0, and 0, negative 8. Don't forget your parentheses. Javier has $25 more than Lizzie. Their combined money totals $75. Combined money, that one should be easy to figure out. Which system of equations represents the situation? Remember, system just means two equations. So one equation I can write is right here. Their combined money totals 75. It looks like I'm using the letters J and L for Javier and Lizzie. So if I take Javier's money and I add Lizzie's money, that's my L, their combined money totals what? 75. So I see that one in F. That doesn't mean that's my answer though. I also see that one in G. Remember, J plus L has to be 75. In H, I see J minus L is 75. That's not the same. And in I, the same thing. So it cannot be H and I because they both say, well, H anyways says that their combined money is $25. That's not true. And I doesn't say any of that. So it's not any of those two. So now we have to figure out when I take Javier's money and I take away Lizzie's money, how much money am I going to have left? Javier has 25 more. Just think of it as an example if you want. Say Javier has 50 and then Lizzie has 25 because Javier has 25 more, right? 50 is 25 more than 25. So if I were to subtract those, I would get that 25 more. So that's my other equation right here. So the answer has to be G. Which of the following is a solution to the system of equations shown? This used to be a multiple choice question. All you have to do is find where they meet. That's the solution, is where they both meet. Okay, and that is the point 3 on the x-axis, so the x is 3, and negative 2 on the y-axis, so the y is negative 2. What is the solution to the system of equations? All right, so here, this one says y equals x minus 3. So I'm going to plug that in for this y here. So let's rewrite the bottom equation. I'm going to write it down first. There's the bottom equation. Now I'm going to rewrite this, but instead of y, I'm going to put in x minus 3. So x minus 3 equals 2x. All right, I've got variables on both sides. Remember, you have to get all variables to one side, all constants to the other. So since I already have a constant here, I'm going to go ahead and move the variables the other way. So let's subtract this x, or 1x if you will. Okay, so I still have a negative 3 when my x's cancel, and that will equal 2x minus 1x is just 1x. We're done. 1x is what we want. Well, we're done for x anyway. We found x. X is negative 3. But we want the whole ordered pair. We want the x and the y. So now I'm going to take my original equation. Let me erase this so you can see it better. I'm going to take that top one. It doesn't matter if you use the top or the bottom. Y equals x minus 3, that top equation. Now I'm going to plug in negative 3 for this x. So let's rewrite this. Instead of x, we're writing negative 3. And then, of course, we have minus 3. And negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6. So we have our x and y, and we write that as an ordered pair, negative 3, comma, negative 6. And the only one that looks like that is I. One more like that. Same thing. This one says y equals this stuff. So I'm going to plug that in for y here. So when I rewrite this bottom equation, let me write it down first. When I rewrite this, instead of y, I want this negative x minus 2. So here's y, so I'm going to put negative x minus 2 equals 4x plus 3. This time I have variables on both sides, so it doesn't matter which way I move the variables. I'm going to go ahead and undo this negative x here by adding x. And again, this is 1 when there's no number there. You guys are pretty good at that. So adding 1x to both sides, I'll draw my line so you see that I did it to both sides of the equation. They're going to cancel on the left, leaving me with negative 2 equals, well, we're going to add down here, 4x plus 1x is 5x, and that's plus 3. Now it's just a two-step equation. I'm trying to move everything away from x. So I'm going to subtract 3 first. That will leave me with negative 5 equals 5x because my 3's canceled. And we're going to divide by positive 5 to get x by itself. Negative 1 will equal x. Again, we're not done yet because we still need to find y. This time I'm going to use the bottom equation just because there's less negatives there. I'll do it with both just to show you, but I'm going to start by doing the bottom one. So rewriting this, and now instead of x, we're going to plug in negative 1. So here's the x, comes right here. It's a negative 1. Okay, and then we add the 3. Got to multiply first. This is a horrible video with all our interruptions. We have negative 4 plus 3, which is a negative 1 as well. They're both negative 1. So that's the ordered pair, negative 1, comma, negative 1, which is C. Be careful, they all look kind of the same. This is C. I'll just show you. You don't have to write this down, but I'll show you doing it with the other one. Y equals negative x minus 2. If I were to plug this x in, so this is a negative 1. So watch me as I do this. This is y equals negative. I'm going to leave a space because I'm going to put my x in there. And then minus 2. But the x is, right here, a negative 1. So basically, they're saying, what's the opposite of negative 1? The opposite of negative 1 is positive 1. So this says y equals positive 1 minus 2, where you will get your negative 1. We got the same answer.